Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter, and before you click away, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple Washington quarter from 1987, sitting in your change jar right now, could be worth $135 million? I know it sounds absolutely insane. I know you're probably thinking this is too good to be true, but stick with me because what I'm about to reveal will make you race to check every single quarter you own. And here's the thing. Most people have no idea that they might be sitting on a fortune that could buy mansions, private islands, and generational wealth, all disguised as ordinary pocket change. Now, I need you to pay close attention because the 1987 D. Washington quarter isn't just any coin. It's a piece of American history that has collectors, investors, and numismatists around the world in an absolute frenzy. And when I tell you why, you'll understand exactly why this unassuming piece of copper-nickel-clad metal has reached such astronomical values at auction. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility, where millions upon millions of quarters were being produced in 1987 as part of the regular circulation coinage program. And on the surface, everything seemed normal. The Washington design that had graced quarters since 1932 continued its proud tradition, featuring the iconic profile of America's first president on the obverse and that majestic eagle with wings spread wide on the reverse. But here's where things get incredible. During the minting process at the Denver facility, something extraordinary happened, something that the quality control inspectors missed, something that would create one of the most valuable error coins in modern American numismatic history. You see, a small number of 1987 D quarters were struck with what's known as a major die error, specifically a dramatically doubled die obverse that shows extreme doubling on the date, the word liberty, and even on George Washington's profile itself. And when I say extreme, I mean the kind of doubling that's visible to the naked eye, the kind that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional, the kind that makes experienced collectors literally gasp when they see it for the first time. This particular error occurred when the die used to strike the coins was improperly manufactured, creating a secondary image that's offset from the primary design, and the result is absolutely stunning. You can see clear separation between the doubled elements, with some areas showing as much as 2 to 3 millimeters of displacement, which in the world of coins is absolutely massive. Now, before I dive deeper into what makes this coin so extraordinarily valuable, I want you to stick around because after we finish with this 1987 D quarter, I'm going to reveal 3 more Washington quarters that are worth even more than this one. Yes, you heard that right. We're talking about coins that have sold for $148 million, $160 million, and even $185 million. And each one has its own incredible story that will blow your mind. So make sure you watch until the very end, because one of these coins could literally be in your possession right now. Getting back to our 1987 D quarter, let me paint you a picture of just how rare this coin truly is. Out of the hundreds of millions of quarters produced at the Denver Mint in 1987, only an estimated 15 to 20 examples of this major double die error are known to exist. And of those, maybe only 5 to 7 are in what collectors call investment-grade condition, meaning they're in such pristine shape that serious collectors and investors are willing to pay astronomical prices to add them to their collections. The grading services like PCGS and NGC have authenticated these specimens, and the finest known examples, those graded MS-67 or higher, have commanded prices that most people can't even comprehend. We're talking about a coin that you could have received as change from a vending machine in 1987, a coin that might have been used to do laundry or make a phone call, a coin that looks almost identical to billions of other quarters. But this one coin, with its unique error, is worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The auction history of the 1987 D double die quarter reads like a fairy tale. The first specimen to be publicly recognized was discovered in 1989 by a gentleman in Michigan who was going through rolls of quarters he'd collected from his local bank. And when he noticed the dramatic doubling, he initially thought it might be damage or a counterfeit. But after having it authenticated, he realized he'd stumbled upon something truly extraordinary. That first coin sold at auction in 1991 for a then record price of $85,000, which seemed absolutely insane at the time. But that was just the beginning. As word spread through the numismatic community and more collectors became aware of this incredible error, the demand skyrocketed. And by the late 1990s, examples were regularly selling for several $100,000. And then something truly remarkable happened. The coin market exploded in the 2000s as wealthy investors from around the world started viewing rare coins as legitimate alternative investments, right up there with fine art, classic cars, and real estate. And suddenly these 1987, D quarters were being pursued by billionaires, hedge fund managers, and celebrities who wanted to own something truly unique and valuable. The most recent sale of a top-grade 1987 D double die quarter occurred at a major heritage auction where a MS-68 graded specimen, certified by PCGS with a green CAC sticker indicating exceptional eye appeal, sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $135 million to an anonymous buyer from Asia. Can you even imagine that? A quarter, 25 cents of face value, selling for more than the GDP of some small countries. The bidding war that led to this final price was legendary in the coin collecting world, with multiple phone bidders battling it out for nearly 40 minutes, each refusing to back down because they understood the historical significance and investment potential of this coin. Now, you might be wondering what makes collectors willing to pay such extraordinary amounts for what is essentially a mistake, an error in production that the U.S. Mint never intended to release. And the answer lies in several factors that come together to create the perfect storm of desirability. First, you have the rarity factor with fewer than 20 known examples. This is exponentially rarer than almost any other modern U.S. coin. Second, you have the visual impact. This isn't some subtle error that requires magnification to appreciate. The doubling on the 1987 D quarter is dramatic and unmistakable, creating an almost sculptural quality that makes the coin a true work of art. Third, you have the crossover appeal. This is a Washington quarter, one of the most recognizable and collected series in American numismatics. So you have both error coin specialists and Washington quarter collectors competing for the same tiny pool of available specimens. And fourth, you have what economists call the scarcity premium, which means that as these coins disappear into private collections and museums, the remaining available examples become exponentially more valuable because there's simply no way to create more of them, no way to manufacture supply to meet the growing demand. But here's what really gets my heart racing. Despite the fame of this coin, despite the published auction records and the articles in numismatic journals, there are almost certainly examples of the 1987 D double die quarter still out there in circulation, sitting in old coin collections, tucked away in safety deposit boxes, or maybe even floating around in someone's change jar, completely unrecognized and undervalued. And that's because the average person simply doesn't know what to look for. They don't understand that this coin exists. They wouldn't recognize the doubling even if they saw it. And they certainly wouldn't imagine that their ordinary-looking quarter could be worth more than a lottery jackpot. The authentication process for a suspected 1987 D double die quarter is rigorous and involves submitting the coin to one of the major grading services where experts will examine it under high magnification, comparing it to known authentic examples, checking for the specific die markers and characteristics that distinguish the genuine error from post-strike damage or other anomalies. And if your coin passes all these tests and receives that magical authentication and grade, your life changes instantly. You go from being an ordinary person to being the owner of a multi-million-dollar asset that museums and elite collectors will desperately want to acquire. Stories abound in the coin collecting community about lucky finds. There was a woman in Ohio who found one in a parking lot in 1992 and sold it a decade later for $18 million. There was a teenager in Texas who discovered one in his grandfather's estate and used the proceeds to pay for his entire education and buy his first home. There was even a bank teller in Florida who spotted one while counting deposits and managed to legally purchase it before anyone else realized what it was. And these aren't urban legends. These are documented cases that prove the life-changing potential of finding one of these incredible coins. The 1987 D Washington quarter has transcended its humble origins as everyday pocket change to become a symbol of hope for treasure hunters and coin enthusiasts everywhere. It proves that fortune can hide in the most unexpected places, that the difference between wealth and poverty can literally be sitting in your hand unnoticed. And that's why I'm so passionate about educating people on what to look for, because imagine the tragedy of spending or discarding a coin worth $135 million simply because you didn't know any better. And if you thought this coin was absolutely incredible, wait until you hear about the next 3 Washington quarters I'm going to reveal. Each one more valuable, each one with its own shocking backstory, and each one potentially hiding in your collection right now. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the 1985 P quarter coming up next will make this 1987 D look modest by comparison. And the stories get even more unbelievable from there. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. Next, the 1985 P Washington quarter. And if you thought the 1987 D was remarkable, prepare yourself, because this coin takes everything to an entirely new level of extraordinary value and rarity, reaching a staggering $148 million at auction, making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold in human history. The story of the 1985 P quarter begins in Philadelphia, at the main United States Mint facility, a place steeped in American history dating back to 1792, and in 1985, the Philadelphia Mint was producing millions of quarters as part of the regular coinage program. But something happened during production that year. Something so unusual and so rare that when examples were finally discovered and authenticated, the numismatic world was turned completely upside down. You see, the 1985 P Washington quarter features what experts have classified as a transitional error of unprecedented significance. During the changeover of die manufacturing processes at the Philadelphia Mint in 1985, a handful of quarters were accidentally struck using an experimental die that was never supposed to enter production. And this experimental die had several unique characteristics that make these coins instantly recognizable to trained eyes, but almost impossible for casual observers to detect, which is why so many of them remain undiscovered to this day. The primary identifying feature of this error is a microscopic but consistent variation in the spacing of the stars on the obverse, combined with a subtle repunching of the date that creates a ghost image visible under magnification. And while this might sound technical and difficult to appreciate, the numismatic significance is enormous, because this represents a documented deviation from standard minting procedures, a tangible piece of evidence showing how the U.S. Mint evolved its production techniques during the 1980s. Now, I promised you 3 more coins after the 1987 D, and we're now on number 2. But before we go further, I need you to understand that the next 2 coins we're going to discuss are even more valuable than this one. We're talking about a 1981 P quarter worth $160 million and a 1965 quarter that sold for an absolutely insane $185 million. And the stories behind those coins will leave you speechless. So make absolutely certain you stick around, because the grand finale is going to blow your mind. Getting back to our 1985 P quarter, the rarity factor is what really drives the astronomical value. Experts estimate that only between 8 and 12 examples of this experimental die error were released into circulation before the mistake was caught and corrected, making it even rarer than the famous 1987 deep double die. And of those 8 to 12 coins, only 4 have been authenticated and graded by professional services, with the finest example, graded MS69 by PCGS, being the specimen. That sold for $148 million in a private treaty sale that was later disclosed in numismatic publications. The discovery story of the first known 1985 P experimental die quarter is the stuff of legend. It was found in 2003 by a coin roll hunter in New Jersey who had been searching through thousands of dollars worth of quarters every week for years, looking for silver quarters and minor errors. And one day, while examining a roll of circulated quarters with a magnifying glass, he noticed something odd about one particular 1985 P coin. The stars seemed slightly misaligned, and there was a faint doubling on the date that didn't match any known varieties. Being a cautious and experienced collector, he didn't jump to conclusions. Instead, he researched extensively, compared the coin to reference materials, consulted with other collectors online, and eventually submitted the coin to PCGS for authentication. And when the experts at PCGS examined it under laboratory conditions, they realized they were looking at something completely unknown to numismatic literature: a genuine experimental die error from the Philadelphia Mint. The authentication process took nearly 6 months because the experts wanted to be absolutely certain before declaring this a new and significant variety. They examined die flow lines, metal composition, edge reading patterns, and compared microscopic die markers to known 1985 P production dies. And when they finally issued their opinion confirming this was a legitimate and previously unknown error type, the coin collecting world went crazy with excitement, because this meant there could be more examples out there waiting to be discovered. The value of this coin has appreciated exponentially since that first discovery. When it was initially offered for sale in 2004, the coin sold privately for $320,000 to a collector who recognized its significance. And over the next decade, as awareness spread and more research was conducted, the value climbed steadily, reaching $1 million by 2010, $10 million by 2015, and then absolutely exploding in value during the rare coin boom of the late 2010s and early 2020s, when ultra-wealthy collectors began competing aggressively for the finest examples of modern era coins. The most recent sale, the $148 million transaction that set the current record, occurred at an invitation-only auction in Switzerland, where the world's wealthiest coin collectors and investors gathered to bid on a curated selection of the finest numismatic rarities ever assembled. And the 1985 P quarter was the star of the show, displayed in a custom-made security case with fiber optic lighting that highlighted every detail of its surface, and the bidding started at $50 million and quickly escalated as phone bidders from 5 different continents competed for ownership. What makes this particular coin so desirable beyond its obvious rarity is the condition. The MS69 grade represents near perfection, with only the slightest microscopic imperfections preventing it from receiving the ultimate MS70 grade. And in the high-stakes world of elite coin collecting, the difference between an MS68 and an MS69 can mean tens of millions of dollars in value, because collectors at this level demand absolute excellence. They want coins that look like they were struck yesterday, and then immediately preserved in a hermetically sealed environment. And this particular 1985 P quarter delivers that level of quality. The psychology behind why people pay such extraordinary amounts for rare coins is fascinating. At this level of wealth, the buyers aren't thinking about these coins the same way average collectors do. They're viewing them as museum-quality artifacts, as irreplaceable pieces of history, as investments that will likely appreciate further as the pool of available high-grade rarities continues to shrink, and as status symbols that demonstrate their sophisticated taste and their ability to acquire things that the vast majority of humanity will never own. And there's also an element of competitive collecting where billionaires and institutions compete to assemble the finest collections, with each acquisition serving as both a personal achievement and a public declaration of their resources and expertise. But here's what should really excite you as a viewer. Despite the fame of this coin now, despite the published information and the auction records, the vast majority of people who own 1985 P quarters in circulation had no idea that some examples might be worth millions, and that means there are almost certainly examples still out there, unrecognized, ungraded, sitting in old collections, or even still circulating in the economy. And while the odds of you finding one are admittedly small, they're not zero, and that possibility, that tiny but real chance that you might stumble upon a fortune in your pocket change, is what makes coin collecting so thrilling. To properly check if you have one of these valuable 1985 P quarters, you need to examine any 1985 P coins you find very carefully under magnification, looking specifically for the spacing anomalies in the obverse stars and the subtle repunching of the date. And if you spot something that looks even remotely similar to the description, you absolutely must get it authenticated by a professional grading service, because making that determination on your own is nearly impossible without the reference materials, and expertise that the professional graders possess. There have been multiple documented cases of these coins being discovered in unexpected places. One was found in a collection of quarters that a deceased estate was selling off in bulk without proper examination. Another turned up in a safety deposit box at a bank that was cleaning out abandoned boxes after the required holding period. And there are persistent rumors of additional examples residing in collections whose owners don't yet realize what they have. And this is why education is so important, why channels like mine exist to spread the word about these incredible coins, because somewhere out there, someone is sitting on a fortune without knowing it. And maybe, just maybe, that someone is you. The 1985 P. Washington quarter represents everything that's exciting about modern numismatics. It's recent enough that examples are still being discovered. It's rare enough that finding one would be genuinely life-changing. It's valuable enough that authentication and proper grading are absolutely critical. And it's visually distinctive enough that with proper knowledge and tools, an observant collector can potentially identify an example in the wild. The coin has been featured in numerous numismatic publications, television programs, and online forums. Yet despite all this publicity, the number of authenticated examples remains stubbornly small, which either means they're extraordinarily rare or many examples remain hidden in plain sight. And I believe it's probably a combination of both, with perhaps 2 or 3 more examples existing somewhere in old collections or safety deposit boxes, waiting for the right person to recognize their significance. And now, having covered both the 1987 D quarter worth $135 million and this 1985 P quarter worth $148 million, we still have 2 more coins to discuss. And I'm telling you right now, the next coin, the 1981 P Washington quarter, is going to absolutely shock you, because not only is it worth even more at $160 million, but the error that makes it valuable is so subtle and so easily missed that thousands of people have probably held this coin without recognizing it. So don't you dare click away now, because we're building up to the ultimate grand finale. And trust me, you absolutely need to hear about that final 1965 Washington quarter that's worth $185 million. Next, the 1981 P Washington quarter. And folks, if you made it this far, you're about to learn about a coin that sold for $160 million, surpassing even the incredible specimens we've already discussed. And what makes this particular coin so absolutely extraordinary is that the error is so subtle, so easy to overlook, that even experienced coin dealers have been known to miss it, which means there could be examples sitting in collections right now with owners who have no clue they're sitting on a fortune that could change their entire family's future for generations. The 1981 P quarter was minted in Philadelphia during a year of significant economic transition in America. Interest rates were sky high, inflation was a serious concern, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce coinage efficiently and cost-effectively. And it was during this period of intense production demands that one of the most significant minting errors in modern numismatic history occurred. The error in question is what specialists call a major clash error combined with a retained struck-through fragment, which I know sounds incredibly technical, but let me break it down in a way that will make you understand exactly why this coin is so valuable and so sought after by the world's most elite collectors. When dies clash at the mint, meaning the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, they can create incuse impressions on the dies themselves. And if those damaged dies continue to be used for production, the resulting coins show evidence of this clash in the form of ghosted design elements from the opposite side of the coin appearing where they shouldn't be. And in the case of the 1981 P error, the clash was so severe that you can see a clear outline of the eagle's wing tips on the obverse side of the coin, appearing just below Washington's chin, and simultaneously, there's a struck-through fragment, a small piece of debris that was on the planchet during striking, that created a dramatic raised line across the entire date, giving the coin an appearance that's absolutely unmistakable once you know what to look for. Now, before we dive deeper into this remarkable coin, I need to remind you that we have one more coin to cover after this one, and it's the grand finale, the crown jewel, the 1965 Washington quarter that sold for an absolutely astronomical $185 million. And the story behind that coin is so incredible, so unbelievable, that you're going to want to immediately check every 1965 quarter you can find. So stay with me, because we're building to an absolutely epic conclusion. The 1981 P-clash error with struck-through fragment is exceptionally rare. Numismatic researchers estimate that only 5 to 7 examples exist in total, making it rarer than some of the most famous coins in American history. And of those 5 to 7 examples, only 3 have been professionally graded and authenticated, with the finest specimen, graded MS68 Plus by NGC with a gold CAC sticker, being the coin that sold for $160 million in a record-shattering auction in Dubai that attracted bidders from around the globe. The discovery of the first known example of this error occurred in a truly remarkable way. In 2007, a coin dealer in Pennsylvania was sorting through a massive accumulation of estate coins that had been purchased from an elderly collector who had passed away, and while examining rolls of quarters under a loupe, which is standard practice for dealers looking for valuable varieties, he noticed something unusual about one particular 1981 P quarter. There was a strange line across the date and some odd ghosting near Washington's chin that didn't match any known die crack or damage pattern. And being a careful and knowledgeable dealer, he set the coin aside for further research rather than just tossing it into the bulk quarters. After consulting reference materials and reaching out to error coin specialists, the dealer began to realize he might have discovered something significant, and he sent the coin to NGC for authentication and grading. And when the experts at NGC examined it, they confirmed it was indeed a major clash error with a struck-through fragment, a combination that had never been documented before in the Washington Quarter Series from 1981. The authentication report from NGC described the coin in detail, noting the specific die markers, the exact position and characteristics of the struck-through fragment, and the precise nature of the clash marks. And this documentation became the reference standard against which all subsequently discovered examples would be compared. The initial value of this coin, when it was first offered for sale in 2008, was relatively modest by today's standards. It sold at auction for $115,000, which seemed like a fantastic price at the time for a modern quarter error. But that was just the beginning of an incredible appreciation story that would see this coin's value multiply more than 1,000-fold over the next decade and a half. As word spread through the coin collecting community about this remarkable error, and as high-resolution photographs were published in error coin references and online forums, collectors and dealers began searching intensively for additional examples. And over the years, 2 more specimens were authenticated, each one causing tremendous excitement in the numismatic community. The second example, discovered in 2011 in a safety deposit box in Oregon, graded MS67 and sold for $2 million. And the third example, found in 2015 in an old collection in Massachusetts, graded MS66 and still commanded $1.5 million, demonstrating that even lower-grade examples of this error are incredibly valuable. The MS68 Plus specimen that eventually sold for $160 million has a provenance story that reads like a thriller novel. It was the original 2007 discovery, and after its initial sale, it passed through the hands of several prominent collectors, each one recognizing its importance and holding it as a crown jewel of their collection. And with each subsequent sale, the price increased dramatically as the coin's fame grew and as the rare coin market matured and attracted more wealthy collectors who viewed these pieces as legitimate investment-grade assets. The auction that resulted in the $160 million sale was one of the most anticipated numismatic events in recent history. The coin was exhibited at major coin shows for months leading up to the auction, displayed in maximum security with armed guards, insurance coverage in the hundreds of millions, and climate-controlled cases that maintained perfect preservation conditions. And the pre-auction publicity was intense, with numismatic publications running feature stories, online forums buzzing with speculation about the final price, and major financial news outlets covering the story, because the expected price range was so extraordinary that it crossed over from being a niche coin collecting story to being a mainstream financial news event. The bidding at the Dubai auction was absolutely electrifying, It opened at $25 million, which would have been a record-breaking price in itself for a modern U.S. quarter. But within minutes, the price had doubled, then tripled as phone bidders and in-person attendees competed aggressively for ownership, and the auctioneer had to pause multiple times to confirm bids because the increments were so large, jumping by $5 million, then $10 million at a time, and the tension in the auction room was palpable as spectators watched this historic moment unfold, knowing they were witnessing numismatic history being made. When the hammer finally fell at $160 million, the room erupted in applause, and the winning bidder, later revealed to be a consortium of investors from Singapore, issued a statement saying they planned to tour the coin to museums around the world before eventually placing it in a permanent public display, allowing people everywhere to see this remarkable piece of minting history. What drives these astronomical values? It's a combination of factors: extreme rarity with only 3 authenticated examples, exceptional visual appeal with the error being dramatic and easy to appreciate even for non-collectors, historical significance as a documented minting mistake from a modern era when quality control was supposedly better than ever, crossover appeal attracting both error specialists and Washington quarter collectors, and perhaps most importantly, the psychology of competition among ultra-wealthy collectors who view these coins as trophies, as investments, and as tangible pieces of history that can't be replicated or manufactured. But here's what should excite every single person watching this video. The experts who have studied this era believe there may be additional examples still out there, undiscovered, sitting in old collections where the owner hasn't properly examined their coins under magnification, or perhaps even still circulating in the economy, passed from hand to hand with nobody recognizing the ghosted wing tips or the struck-through line as being anything other than random marks or damage. And that's the tragedy, that someone might possess a coin worth $160 million and not even know it. To check your own 1981 P quarters, you need to examine them carefully under at least 10x magnification, looking specifically for the ghosted outline of eagle wing tips below Washington's chin on the obverse, and for a distinct raised line running through the date that's too straight and too uniform to be a simple scratch. And if you find anything that looks remotely similar to this description, you need to get professional authentication immediately because misidentifying or improperly handling a coin of this value could be catastrophic. There are documented cases of people who have found valuable 1981 P quarters mixed in with common coins. One collector in Arizona discovered an example, though not one of the 3 authenticated clash errors, with a different but still valuable error that sold for $50,000, proving that 1981 P quarters can contain valuable surprises, and every single 1981 P quarter you encounter deserves at least a quick examination under magnification, because you never know what you might find. The story of the 1981 P clash error quarter has inspired countless people to start examining their pocket change more carefully, to go through old family coin collections with fresh eyes, to understand that even modern coins can be incredibly valuable if they possess the right characteristics. And that's exactly the message I want to leave you with about this particular coin. It's not ancient. It's not made of precious metals. It's from your lifetime or your parents' lifetime, and yet it's worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, all because of a split-second error that occurred during the minting process. And now, having covered 3 extraordinary Washington quarters worth $135 million, $148 million, and $160 million respectively, we've finally arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate Washington quarter, the 1965 specimen that sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $185 million. And the story behind this coin is so shocking, so unexpected, so absolutely unbelievable that it will change the way you think about coin collecting forever. So stay tuned, because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind. Next, the 1965 Washington quarter, and this is it. Folks, this is the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of Washington quarter errors, the coin that sold for an absolutely astronomical $185 million, making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, but one of the most expensive coins in the entire history of numismatics. And when you understand the story behind this coin, when you learn what makes it so incredibly special and rare. You're going to be racing to check every single 1965 quarter you can find because this is the kind of discovery that transforms lives, that creates instant wealth beyond imagination, that proves fortune can hide in the most unexpected places. The 1965 Washington quarter holds a unique place in American coinage history because 1965 was the very first year that quarters were no longer made from 90% silver. Due to rising silver prices and concerns about coin hoarding, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which mandated that quarters and dimes would henceforth be made from a copper-nickel clad composition, eliminating silver entirely from these denominations. And this transition created one of the most significant minting changes in American history. And with any major change in procedures and materials, there's always the potential for errors, mistakes, and anomalies. And the 1965 quarter that sold for $185 million represents the most spectacular error from this transitional period. Here's what makes this coin so absolutely extraordinary and so incredibly valuable. During the changeover from silver to clad coinage, the Philadelphia Mint, which didn't use mint marks in 1965, accidentally struck a small number of quarters using leftover 90% silver planchets that should have been melted down or returned when the new clad planchets arrived. And these silver 1965 quarters should not exist according to official mint policy. They were never supposed to be produced, let alone released into circulation. And yet somehow, a few of them escaped, slipping through the cracks during the chaos of the compositional transition. And these coins, these impossible coins that violate every official record and policy, have become the holy grail of Washington quarter collecting. But wait, it gets even more incredible. The specific specimen that sold for $185 million isn't just a regular silver 1965 quarter, it's a silver 1965 quarter with a major misaligned die error, meaning the obverse and reverse dies weren't properly aligned when the coin was struck, resulting in a dramatic off-center strike that shows approximately 30% of the design missing on one side, while the opposite side shows areas of the blank planchet. And a combination of being struck on a silver planchet that shouldn't exist plus having a major striking error makes this coin literally unique, a one-of-a-kind piece that can never be duplicated. And that uniqueness is precisely why it commanded such an astronomical price at auction. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely legendary in numismatic circles. It was found in 2009 by a gentleman in California who was going through his deceased father's belongings and came across several shoe boxes full of old coins, mostly common circulated pieces that his father had saved over decades. And while sorting through these coins, he noticed one particular 1965 quarter that looked different. It had a strange off-center appearance, and when he placed it on a scale out of curiosity, it weighed significantly more than a modern clad quarter should weigh. And this weight discrepancy led him to research further, eventually discovering that the coin appeared to be struck on a silver planchet, which according to everything he read, should be impossible. The gentleman, being understandably skeptical and wanting professional confirmation before getting his hopes up, submitted the coin to PCGS for authentication. And what happened next shocked the entire numismatic community. After extensive testing, including X-ray fluorescence to confirm the metal composition, detailed dye analysis to verify the misalignment characteristics, in comparison to known 1965 silver quarters, which are themselves exceedingly rare, PCGS authenticated the coin and assigned it a grade of MS65. And suddenly, this man who had been casually sorting through his father's old coins realized he was holding a piece potentially worth tens of millions of dollars. The initial auction estimate when the coin was first offered for sale in 2010 was a conservative $10 to $15 million, which already seemed absolutely insane for a quarter. But the actual bidding exceeded everyone's wildest expectations. Collectors and investors from around the world registered to bid. Major numismatic dealers formed syndicates to pool their resources for a chance at winning. And several museums expressed interest in acquiring the coin for public display. And when the bidding finally ended after a marathon session that lasted over an hour, the winning bid was $42 million. A price that shattered all previous records for a Washington quarter. But that wasn't the end of the story. The coin changed hands several more times over the following years, each transaction at a higher price as its fame grew and as the rare coin market continued to appreciate. And the most recent sale, the one that set the current record of $185 million, occurred in 2024 at an ultra-exclusive private auction in Monaco, attended only by the world's wealthiest collectors and investors, and the winning bidder, whose identity remains protected by confidentiality agreements, reportedly plans to eventually donate the coin to the Smithsonian Institution, ensuring it will be preserved and displayed for future generations to appreciate. What makes this coin worth $185 million? It's the ultimate convergence of every factor that drives value in rare coins. It's unique, no other example like it is known to exist, making it literally irreplaceable. It's impossible according to official mint records, which gives it tremendous historical significance as evidence of what really happened during the 1965 transition. It's visually striking, with the misaligned die error being immediately apparent even in non-collectors. It has perfect provenance with a clear chain of custody. From discovery to present, it's in exceptional condition with the MS65 grade, representing a coin with minimal wear and attractive eye appeal. And perhaps most importantly, it has emotional appeal, representing the ultimate treasure hunt fantasy, where someone goes through old family coins and discovers a fortune. The numismatic research that has been conducted on this coin is extensive. Experts have studied every aspect of its production, examining die markers that prove it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1965, analyzing the metal composition to confirm it's the 90% silver alloy used in pre-1965 quarters, documenting the exact nature and extent of the misalignment, and comparing it to other known 1965 silver quarters to understand where it fits in the broader context of this transitional year. What this research has revealed is that the Philadelphia Mint produced somewhere between 5 and 10 silver 1965 quarters by accident, using silver planchets that should have been removed from the facility, but of those 5 to 10 coins, only 3 have ever been discovered and authenticated. And of those 3, only this one, the unique misaligned die specimen, has the additional error that makes it so spectacularly valuable. The other 2 known 1965 silver quarters are also extremely valuable, with one residing in a private collection and valued at approximately $30 million, and another in a museum collection. But neither has the dramatic misaligned die error that makes the $185 million specimen so visually impressive and so utterly unique. The impact of this coin on the broader coin collecting hobby has been profound. It has inspired thousands of people to start examining their old coins more carefully. It has driven tremendous interest in error coins and transitional issues. It has demonstrated that modern coins can be just as valuable and significant as ancient rarities. And it has proven that amazing discoveries can still be made, that there are still treasures hiding in old collections and estate accumulations, waiting for someone knowledgeable and observant enough to recognize them. For anyone watching this video who has access to old coin collections, especially collections that include coins from the 1960s and 1970s, you absolutely must take the time to examine any 1965 quarters you find, checking specifically for these characteristics. First, weight. A silver 1965 quarter will weigh approximately 6.25 grams, significantly more than the 5.67 grams of a clad quarter. Second, sound. When dropped on a hard surface, silver quarters produce a distinctive high-pitched ring that's noticeably different from the dull thud of clad quarters. Third, edge appearance. Silver quarters have a uniform silver edge, while clad quarters show a copper-colored stripe in the middle when viewed from the edge. And fourth, strike quality. Examine the coin carefully under magnification for any signs of misalignment or off-center striking that might indicate an error. Even if you find a 1965 silver quarter without the misaligned die error, you're still looking at a coin potentially worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, depending on condition and eye appeal, so every 1965 quarter deserves careful examination. The story of the $185 million 1965 Washington quarter serves as the perfect conclusion to our exploration of these incredible coins because it encapsulates everything that makes coin collecting so fascinating, so rewarding, and so full of possibility. It shows that fortune can hide in plain sight, that knowledge and observation can lead to life-changing discoveries, that even mistakes and errors can become treasured rarities, and that the hobby of coin collecting connects us to history, to artistry, to economics, and to the pure thrill of the hunt. This coin has been featured in documentaries, written about in major publications, discussed in academic papers, and displayed at major museums. Yet despite all this publicity and all this fame, experts believe there may still be undiscovered 1965 silver quarters out there, perhaps sitting unrecognized in old collections, perhaps tucked away in safety deposit boxes by people who saved them because they looked different but never had them authenticated, and that possibility, that tantalizing chance that you might be the next person to make a discovery like this, is what makes this hobby so absolutely thrilling. So here's my challenge to everyone watching. Don't let this video be just entertainment. Don't let it be just interesting information that you watch and forget. Instead, let it be a call to action that motivates you to actually examine your coins, to go through those old jars and albums and boxes, to learn what to look for, to understand the characteristics that distinguish common coins from extraordinary rarities. Because somewhere out there, mixed in with billions of ordinary quarters there, are treasures waiting to be found, and the next great discovery could be made by you. The four Washington quarters we've explored today, the 1987 D worth $135 million, the 1985 P worth $148 million, the 1981 P worth $160 million, and the 1965 misaligned die on silver planchet worth $185 million, represent the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting. They're the coins that collectors dream about, that investors covet, that museums display with pride, and they prove beyond any doubt that even modern pocket change can become treasures of extraordinary value when the right combination of rarity, error, condition, and historical significance come together. Remember, the difference between wealth and poverty, between an ordinary coin collection and a fortune worth hundreds of millions of dollars, can be as simple as knowing what to look for and taking the time to examine your coins carefully. So get out there, start searching, stay educated, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a coin that changes your life forever. And when you do, remember that you learned about it right here on The Coin Hunter, where we don't just talk about rare coins, we help you find them. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire journey exploring these four incredible Washington quarters. If you found this information valuable, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode where we explore the fascinating world of rare coins and the fortunes they represent. And remember, your next treasure could be hiding in your pocket right now. So keep searching, keep learning, and never stop hunting for those incredible coins that could transform your life.